The year is 2045. A student opens a textbook. The chapter on ancient Asian civilizations doesn't start with familiar names anymore. The first image shows a submerged grid of stone foundations off the coast of the Philippines. The caption reads, "One of the oldest planned urban settlements in Southeast Asia." The student doesn't flinch. For her generation, this knowledge is obvious. For ours, it shattered the framework we relied on for over a century. Let's take a step back. The usual narrative of Southeast Asia follows a familiar path. Civilizations spread from China and India. Island nations received culture. They didn't create it, especially the Philippines, which played a minor role. Scattered barangays, small communities based on kinship, pre-literate, pre-urban. The Spanish colonial period, starting in the 15th century, was seen as the starting line for anything resembling organized society. But before that, fishermen, traders, scattered settlements, nothing monumental, nothing worth rewriting maps for. This model is cracking before our eyes. Archaeological finds across the archipelago, the Manunggul jar, the Laguna copperplate inscription, gold artifacts from Surigao. Each of these destroys the image of passive, pre-civilizational Philippines. But destruction doesn't mean erasure. The framework holds. You see, until teams began exploring what lay underwater. A specific discovery centers on submerged structures found off the coasts of the Visayas and Mindanao. Research teams, including Filipino marine archaeologists and international partners, used side-scan sonar and remote sensing to map the formations on the seafloor. What emerged weren't random piles of stones, geometric patterns, right angles, foundations arranged in rows. Preliminary data on associated organic materials and geological context suggest that some of these formations may date back around 3,000 years, placing them in the early first millennium BCE. Hold on. A number like that needs context. 3,000 years ago, Rome didn't exist as a republic. Athens was centuries away from its golden age. On the mainland of Southeast Asia, the Dongsun culture was just beginning to take shape in what is now Vietnam. If a planned settlement with stone infrastructure existed in the Philippine archipelago during this period, the implications are significant. They are structural. The entire diffusion model, the idea that the islands of Southeast Asia passively awaited cultural transmission from continental powers, needs a fundamental reassessment. Now, let's zoom in. One nuance changes everything about how we read this site. Among the submerged formations, researchers identified what appeared to be channels, narrow cut pathways between structures indicative of water management or planned drainage. Not natural erosion, not random gaps between stones. Intentional engineering, the very hallmark that separates a village from a city, and a city from something with civic planning. Civilizations don't cut drainage channels by chance. Someone organized labor. Someone made decisions for a collective future. Someone thought about infrastructure, not just survival. And this single nuance, the cut channel beneath the sea, raises a much larger question. Who were these people? No records from that period have survived in the Philippines. No inscriptions, no names. The builders left stone, but not writing, at least none we found. The work exists without an author. Here's where history takes a different shape. Forget trying to link this to a known kingdom or named ruler. This site resists such an approach. What we see resembles myth more than biography. A city that sank, a civilization without a surviving voice. The ocean swallowed it, and for 3,000 years, no one on the surface knew. The parallels with flood myths, also found in Philippine oral traditions, are striking. The Bicolano story of Oriol, a serpent linked to floods and submerged lands. Visayan tales of ancient cities lost to rising seas. Scholars dismiss them as pure folklore. Now the seafloor suggests otherwise. But the question of how this site ended up underwater deserves separate exploration because the answer reveals much about the deep instability of the world these builders lived in, and why their achievement is even more remarkable than it seems. Sea levels in Southeast Asia weren't constant. During the last glacial maximum about 20,000 years ago, sea levels were significantly lower. Large areas of what is now seafloor were dry land. As the ice melted, waters rose, not in one dramatic flood, but with pulses over thousands of years. By 3,000 years ago, sea levels were close to modern marks, but localized tectonic activity in the Philippines, one of the most seismically active regions on the planet, could have submerged coastal settlements due to land subsidence. The ground itself sank. The sea didn't need to rise. Earthquakes, subsidence, silence. The geological record shows that this occurred repeatedly across the archipelago. Entire coastlines changed. What was once a port could now be meters below the surface. The builders of this settlement didn't choose a doomed location out of ignorance. They chose the coast because that's where life was. Trade routes, protein from the sea, access to other islands. The same forces that made this place valuable ultimately destroyed it. Creation and destruction from the same source. There's a mythic quality to it, even in purely geological terms. Let's return to the broader picture of Asian history. Several things emerge. First, it challenges the chronology. If urban or semi-urban planning existed in the Philippines around 1000 BCE, the archipelago wasn't a backwater waiting for Indian or Chinese influence. It created complexity on its own, or at least participated in networks far more intricate than previously acknowledged. Second, it raises questions about trade. 3,000-year-old settlements with planned infrastructure don't exist in isolation. They require surplus food production, supply chains for materials, and likely inter-island exchange. The existence of such a site implies a network. Other nodes in this network may also be submerged, unexplored, unexcavated. Third, it intersects with the expansion of the Austronesians, one of the great migrations in human history. Austronesian-speaking people spread from Taiwan through the Philippines and onto Polynesia, Madagascar, and beyond. The Philippines weren't a stopover in this expansion. Accumulating evidence suggests it was a crucible, a place where maritime skills, agricultural practices, and social organization developed and strengthened before spreading further. A sunken city, if confirmed to the extent current evidence suggests, adds material proof to what linguists and geneticists have long hinted at. The Philippines were a center, not a periphery. Now consider the discovery from another angle: mythology. Every culture that encounters a submerged ruin projects meaning onto it. The Greeks had Atlantis. The Japanese have tales of Mu. Tamil traditions speak of Kumarikandam. These stories share a common structure, a great civilization swallowed by the sea, punished or forgotten. When Philippine oral traditions describe lost underwater kingdoms, they've been dismissed as derivative or metaphorical. What if they are memorials? Not literal history, but cultural memory condensed into narrative. A way of saying, we were here, and the water took it. You see, the site itself has no voice, no manifesto, no king's name carved in the lintel. Complete anonymity, and paradoxically, that makes the discovery more powerful, not less. Named civilizations come with baggage, with dynasties to celebrate or criticize, with political narratives that modern states can wield. The nameless city belongs to no faction. It belongs to the question itself. What was here before we started keeping count? Filipino scholars noted the psychological weight of this rupture. Centuries of colonial narratives, Spanish, American, Japanese, laid foreign frameworks over Filipino identity. Pre-colonial history was minimized, not because evidence was lacking, but because seeking it wasn't a priority. Underwater archaeology is costly. Funding goes to sites that confirm existing models, not to those that threaten them. Wait a moment. The tide is changing, literally and figuratively. Marine archaeology programs at Philippine universities have expanded. National government agencies have begun cataloging underwater heritage sites with greater urgency. International partnerships have grown. The discovery, or rather the cluster of discoveries, off the coasts of the Visayas and Mindanao occurred at a moment when the infrastructure for their study finally existed. But confirming what lies below is painstaking work. Maps using sonar are only suggestive, not definitive. Underwater surveys are limited by depth, visibility, and funding. Radiocarbon dating requires organic samples associated with structures, and those samples decay in salt water. Confirmation in peer-reviewed publications will take years, perhaps decades. Stone is patient, the ocean is indifferent. And somewhere between patience and indifference lies a question, one that no sonar can answer. Did the people who cut these drainage channels, who laid these foundations in rows, who built something meant to last, know it would disappear? Did they build with permanence in mind, only to be erased by the very earth beneath them? Or did they understand, as island peoples often do, that the sea gives and the sea takes away, and still chose to build? The city has no author, no name, no monument above water, only stone patterns on the sea floor and a silence 3,000 years deep. Some discoveries shout. This one simply waits.